Hey, welcome to Represent. I am Crunk Chocolate, parts of Shades of Blues, content season, bringing you an episode every other day throughout the summer. Where other podcasts go on holiday, they take a vacation. Not over here at Shades of Blue, baby. We crank our feet up to 10. Represent is where we can relax a little, though, off season for the Premier League and the WSL, these leagues, Europe, all this, let's just say Europe, because I just had someone from who sports an Argentina league, and he was like, hey, I don't mean to be that guy, but we just started. So like I gotta rephrase this. So, but respect. But this Represent is a great chance for me to bring just most dope people on to talk about how they fell in love with football on the clubs that they support. If you're watching on YouTube, please like the video, hit that thumbs up, leave a comment on the episode with your thoughts. For those who prefer the audio only experience, rate and review us on your podcast app, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Good Pods, all those digital streaming platforms. I have a wonderful guest for you. Oh man, honestly, he's getting back into the whole content game. It's nice, and I'm trying to work with him as much as I can before he gets out of here, and it's gonna be impossible to get a hold of him. So Shirtless Plantain, stand up, Shady Gang, give it up for the homie Tosin.
How you doing?
How are you?
I'm good. I'm so good.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, man. Appreciate it. Truly appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to really getting to know you because, like I said, like I said, part of Shirtless Plantain Show, and you weren't a part of it for a bit, and now you're back, and you're getting back in the form, and I see where your presence has like inspired things. I see. I mean, obviously, they do a great job at getting the content out, but just even just your energy, your presence definitely brings energy to the show. Your episode after the Premier League ended and y'all's hate towards City like brought me so much joy. Like it's so funny how like hate towards your club. If I don't like somebody, I'm like fuck those dudes. Guys,
Yeah.
I'm like these dudes are so funny. This is so funny.
Yeah.
This is hilarious.
I think for me, as I've gotten older, like the banter is always going to be the banter, right?
Of course,
but it's also like there's always going to be respect for people's clubs and things like that. But yeah, it's always just banter, man. I think that the way I grew up watching football was always jokes. So we'll get into that. We'll talk about how I grew up in football and all that.
course.
So yeah.
All right, well then let's get into it. And we start off with getting to know you a little bit, with, on the icebreaker side. So introduce yourself a little bit, plug the things that you do.
Cool. For those who don't know me, I'm Tosin. I am one of the founding members of the Shirtless Plantain Show. We are a football dictatorship. Let's say that. We're a football dictatorship. We are a bunch of Nigerians who decided, you know what? We want to kind of change the way football is seen and football is talked about. And, I'm 1/4 of that. And those are my brothers. Like, that's real life family with those guys. We do merch, we do podcasts, we do YouTube episodes. So we try to run a gamut of all things creative as far as football. As far as me, I'm Nigerian, as I've said, born and raised in South London, moved to America literally the day after Leah died. And then 9/11 happened. So yeah, I've been in America since 2001. So British, Nigerian, American. And it's important for me to say that because had I not spent those 11 years in London, I wouldn't have had the experiences I had with football. Not if I didn't move to America, I wouldn't have the experience I had with football as well. And I wouldn't have the experiences of understanding what it's like to be Black on multiple continents in multiple places. And it's also part of the way we talk about football as well. So I grew up in the USU soccer system, won nationals as a kid. My brother went pro. My cousin played in MLS. So football's a big, big thing. My dad almost went pro, almost signed for Tottenham. Thank God he didn't do that. But yeah, football is it's huge in my family. It's literally something that we've done forever. I'm about to be mid-30s soon, and I don't remember a time I didn't watch football. It's always been there, and it's always been like part of my life. But I don't let it define me. But it is a very important part of what I do and kind of guides me. So yeah.
Okay, and yet when we have our chats that aren't like pod based, I get a sense that you're deeply steeped in it, and you have mentioned your own personal success in football. So I'm actually very much looking forward to finding a little bit more about you,
Yeah.
your experiences, and honestly, something as simple as our next question: overrated, underrated thing about football. It tells me a lot about our guests.
Okay.
So let's start with overrated. What is an overrated thing about football? It can be about the sport, culture,
Mhm.
fandom, anything.
I think the most overrated thing for me right now about football is access to information. I think that we as fans know too much about things we shouldn't know about. Like,
Mm.
I'm a huge Man United fan, right? There's no reason we need incessant updates about what the new board is doing, how they're doing that process, how they're doing any of this. You don't need to know who this new CEO is. You don't need to know who the sporting director is. You don't need to know any of that. We've now put these guys on pedestals that we don't need to put them on.
Mm.
Like, for example, Dougie Freeman, who was a decent player in his day, is a maestro behind the keys of what he's doing at Crystal Palace, right? Like, he's the one that signed Eze, Adam Wharton, Michael Lise. Like, he's a brilliant guy. We need to know that he's going to be linked to Newcastle. We don't need to know Dan Ashworth, who, by the way, is very underrated what he did for England. I think that for me, right now, England has the best crop of talent outside of Brazil and France. In fact, I think England are right behind France as far as like talent goes.
Mm.
England are one of the most talented like young generations in men's and women's football, and that's all because of Dan Ashworth and his team when they decided to do in 2012. So that's another story. But the
Mm.
most overrated thing for me is like we know too much, like way too much, and fans start to get way too inner about things that they don't need to know about. It's like it's the summertime, right? Why are you as Man United fans, for example, like getting upset about the process of a multi-billion-dollar club? This is a silly, silly thing for you to get upset about. Like, it's nice outside in America. I know in England it might be raining because that's what y'all do, but it's summertime. Go outside and have fun. Read a book. Do something different with your life. You don't need to worry about what a $1 billion like club is doing. So for me, the most overrated part right now is like just we know too much about the inner workings of football. Like, we just know way too much. So that's the most overrated thing for me.
And I'm with you. And there is a lot of noise that I do not pay attention to. And there are actually certain people that I avoid, at least like podcast wise and things like that, who do or are felt as connected to certain parts, especially to Manchester City, because I don't want none of y'all warping what I'm seeing, because what I like to do is watch the game, watch the game again. I pay attention to all the players' interviews and Pep's interviews and all the pre-match, post-match. Like, I take what they say, and
Mhm.
because I mean, obviously Pep isn't going to tell the whole truth in these, but he's
No,
going to be as honest as possible. And then obviously what you see, you have to make your own process of elimination. And I think we've done pretty good covering Manchester City thoroughly for the last 2.5 seasons. So
yeah,
it's been really fun growing that process of the thing. And I have just recently started to try to use stats a little bit more, but it's really more to like prove my point, which is that's the fantastic thing about numbers and data, because if you use it right, you can just always be correct.
100%.
So
Yeah. I mean, to go back to my point about like we know too much information, right? Like I said, my younger brother, and my cousin are professional players, well, ex-professional players. My cousin played for Kansas City before they became Sporting Kansas. My brother played, different countries in Germany and Sweden, and like he played USL over here. My brother's now an agent, and I can't give certain information out, but it's like there's certain things like fans shouldn't know about agents and how transfers and rumors and things like that work.
1,000%.
Being family with not just my brother who's a ex-professional, right, but it's also having his friends who are also my friends, like knowing the stuff, what goes on behind the scenes. There's so much like back and forth that fans just shouldn't know, right? And that's just how I feel. It's just like we need to relax, okay? It's entertainment at the end of the day. Like, what did Jay say? It's only entertainment. And that's what it is for us, right? It's entertainment. Like, some people do work in football on the timeline, and I respect that. But it's just like, for the most part, most of us are just consumers of the sport and
Mhm.
kind of relax a little bit. So,
Hey, there's certain it's some people's jobs now is to just get all too much of this information, because yeah, just like even the Ashworth email leak, supposedly that information, it's just like, why do we really need to know any of this, especially if nothing comes from it? It's just all disruption. It's just so much
Yeah,
disruption.
yeah, yeah. As far as underrated, I think one of the most underrated things about football is storytelling. I think that we, as people who run our own blogs, run our own podcasts, even what's it called, like commentators, there's something really beautiful about football, right? When you story tell the right way, like when you tell stories and like bring anecdotes and things like that. I love Lee Dixon. Lee Dixon is one of my. I know a lot of people when they hear Lee Dixon, they hate him. I love Lee Dixon because I grew up watching Lee Dixon, right? Like that's a player. Like again, I'm a professional Arsenal hater here, right? But I grew up watching Lee Dixon, right? And every time Lee Dixon tells stories about his Arsenal days, it kills me and makes me laugh because everyone hates it. But for me, it's just like I know that game that you were talking about. I know what you're talking about. He would say something about Thierry Henry, for example, like, "Oh, that was easy for Thierry Henry." And it's just like it's nice to hear this storytelling. And when you bring back certain anecdotes about like, for example, like Carlo Ancelotti, I'll give you a crazy story about Carlo that like just blew my mind. And my dad was telling me, he's like, Carlo played for Paolo Maldini's dad, right? Um, and then him and Paolo Maldini were teammates, and he ended up coaching Paolo Maldini at Milan. So it's just like little tidbits like that. It's like I love when stories connect in football. So for me, it's like I love the storytelling in football so much. It's like there's so many cool things. Like I give you a new example. Wayne Rooney and Michael Carrick were teammates at Man United for years and the England national team. Do you know whose sons play together now in the academy
Oh
system?
gosh. Yes.
Carrick and Rooney's kids play together. It's insane to see things like that. So it's like it's really nice. Like I think storytelling in football is such an underrated thing. Like it's the beautiful game for a reason. You know, there's so much beautiful stories to be told every day. No matter what league you watch, no matter what, if you're watching men's or women's football, there's always a beautiful story to tell. And I think we have to do a much better narrating these stories and telling these stories and like bringing the romanticism out of football. And that's what storytelling is all about.
Respect.
Yeah.
That was so well said and succinct. I can't really add anything onto it, so we'll just keep it moving, baby. Like I know how to read the room by now. I was just like, ooh, that was snaps, and keep it moving. Okay, what made you fall in love with football?
I didn't have a choice. I literally like I was born and it was there. The first ever game I went to was November 16th, 1994, the original Wembley Stadium before they tore it down and built a new one. England, Nigeria, November 16th. I don't forget that because that was the day after my brother's second birthday. So me and my dad, his best friend, who's my brother's godfather, um, we left our house in Plumstead in South London and went up north to Wembley to go watch the game. And I was 4 years old and I went to go watch England, Nigeria. Nigeria wore these jerseys that they only wore one time and it was at that actual game. And for me as a 4-year-old kid, I still remember this, like 30 years ago, blew my mind. I was like, wow, like this is a sport that I love. And again, like I said, like I grew up in a Nigerian home. So football is always on. Like that's there's never a time that like, no one's watching football, talking about football. So naturally was at home. I fell in love with it, especially growing up in London. Like all you do is play ball with your friends 24/7. I mean, literally when I grew up in London, we played morning, afternoon, night, during school, after school, all the time for 7 days a week. So football has always been there for me. And like I don't really remember a time it wasn't in my life. So it's always been there.
That's dope. That is dope.
Yeah.
Well, you have hinted at the club you've said, and you've said what clubs you've hated or don't like.
Yeah.
And you're thankful that your dad didn't play for, but
Yeah.
we haven't fleshed out fully. And you said this is the team I root for. So tell us in here what is your origin story for how you chose the club you support?
All right, so let's go back to the 80s, right?
Okay.
So my dad moved to Nigeria. My dad was born in London, moved to Nigeria when he was a kid, moved back to London in his 20s. He became a Liverpool fan because of John Barnes, right? Like representation is like very important in anything we do in life. So he saw John Barnes, loved John Barnes, became a Liverpool fan, loved the way they played. Obviously, Liverpool in the 80s was that team. When he had me in 90, my brother 92, obviously, naturally, he's like, I want my sons to love the sport that I love and the team that I love. I'm a troll. I think if you follow me on Twitter long enough, you've known that like I love to stir shit. That's just been my thing, right? And if you take offense to that, I'm sorry, but it just is what it is,
I
right?
mean, it's pretty entertaining though.
Yeah. So if you take offense to it, I'm sorry. Whatever. But my dad again was a big Liverpool fan, and he was like, "I'm gonna make my boys Liverpool fans." Me being the shit stirrer that I am, I was like, "What team's gonna really piss my dad off?" And it obviously was Man United. Andy Cole joined in 95, back to the representation thing. Andy Cole joined in
Okay.
95 from Newcastle, and you see this black guy who's a striker who's scoring goals. You're like, I want to be like him. So
Mhm.
Cole joined in 95, became a United fan in 1995, and the rest was history. And yeah, that's how I became a Man United fan, because of Andy Cole and me trying to troll my dad. Actually, I have a funny story about that. 96 FA Cup, Cantona scores the winner, right? Outside the box volley. Go look it up on YouTube at Wembley.
Mhm.
My dad is pissed. He sees his two kids laughing and being happy, takes me and my brother in both arms, right? Puts us outside the house, locks the door, goes upstairs to go to sleep. My mom comes home from like errands. She's pregnant. And she's like, what are my boys doing outside? It's like, dad kicked us out the house. We come upstairs. This man is knocked out. So yeah,
He slept good.
yeah. Oh man, he was knocked out. He was completely knocked out. So yeah.
That's
That's the sort
funny.
of stuff we grew up on. And I grew up in the era of Wenger and United and Arsenal, Wenger and Ferguson and all of that stuff. So I was in that era where, it was real life beef. And like we fought in school. Like in my primary school in London, we fought. Like legit fisticuffs. Like during playtime, recess, like we fought. And that's just how it was, man. Like kids fighting over football is nuts. It's absurd. So yeah.
Really about that life, man.
Yeah.
I grew up playing rugby, and I
Okay.
definitely got into stuff with other teams, but it
Yeah.
was never like, because there was never. I mean, I like the now defunct. It's a different league now, but I liked the Super League at the time, and I was a fan of the Bulls. But I was never like, man, or I was never like South Africa,
Yeah,
England,
yeah, yeah.
Wales, and
Fighting
all
over
that.
everybody.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah,
mean, I wish I had. Like, I'm a Packers fan, and
yeah.
I'll do like light shit talk to
Bears
Bears
and
fans and stuff, but I definitely go harder when it comes to like actual football banter than it is football banter.
I
Like,
think I think with football banter, because it's always on, there's just always some shit to talk. There's always some nonsense to say to somebody, right? So it just is part and parcel of the game. Just
yeah,
what it is. Yeah.
that's facts.
Yeah.
Who is your all-time favorite player from Manchester United and why?
Come on now. The king. Who else would it be? The king. Um it fluctuates every day. But right now it's Eric Cantona. I think Eric Cantona was the catalyst for Man United being great
Mm,
into the powerhouse that it became in the 90s. Eric Cantona was such a different he brought such a different vibe to the English like game.
yes.
You have this guy who wore his collar up. There's a song we sang as kids. It's like, ooh, Cantona, stick it up your mama's bra. Like it was insane song. Yeah, we sang that shit as kids. But
Love
Cantona
it.
was the man. It's like this guy was doing tricks and things, and he left. He could have stayed. Could have been part of that treble winning team, but he just decided I'm out. I'm out. So Eric was one of my favorite players of all time. And I think that in a weird way, because we think about him now as a philosopher and like he's a very outspoken guy, we forget that this is one of the greatest players that ever came to England.
Mm,
So that guy to me is just that guy. But then again, it's like you think about players like Bex. Like I grew up watching Bex. I grew up watching like, Nasty Man number 11 with the hairy chest. I'm not gonna say his name. People like that. Scholes. Who else is a very underrated Man United player that I grew up on? Trying to think. Peter Schmeichel was one of my favorite players.
mm.
I love Peter Schmeichel. But yeah, there's a lot of great players that like, I grew up watching that, but it has to be the king, man. King Eric was the guy. So yeah.
That's a solid one. You can't argue at all. Yeah, just he's naturally. I don't vibe much with United. Respect the history, all that. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Hey.
But Cantona, like he's the man. Like
Mhm.
you just listen to him talk, and he's just fun. I enjoyed his very brief stint in that United treble doc that dropped somewhat recently, and
Yeah.
yeah, no, he's fun, and yeah, I enjoy him.
And he got away with so much. Like
Yeah.
Ferguson just let him do anything. People would show up in like suit and tie. Cantona would show up in like flip flops, and they're like, "Why can't he do it?" And he's like, "Well, he's Eric. Who are you?" So it's just like it just is what it is. He was so great. Like it just another underrated United player. Back to Andy Cole. Gap Band Outstanding, right?
Yes.
When you get time, Andy Cole actually rapped over a sample of Outstanding. There's a YouTube video of him rapping over Outstanding. I swear to God. Andy Cole outstanding. When you get time, anybody's listening, go look up Andy Cole outstanding. I don't know how Ferguson allowed him to do that back in the 90s, but he's looking it up right now. I promise you, Andy Cole has a full music video, him rapping over like the Gap Band outstanding.
I
So
got it queued up for once we get done with this. Let's
yeah,
go.
you see it, yeah. Yeah. There's like
Oh
how
man.
long is it? Like 4 minutes, 7 seconds. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's
Yeah.
a whole video. That's back then when music, 4 minutes. Oh
Yeah.
man.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So next is
Mhm.
who is a current player who doesn't matter, any team, any league, that you want to watch anytime they are playing?
Vinny Jr. I think that Vinny brings just this element of just fun to football. I love
Yes.
Vinny. I think that the kid is very outspoken, and he's just great. I think it's just fun to see this dark skinned kid just running around in Spain and giving everybody hell, and they racially abuse him. And guess what? He's gonna score a goal in your face and dribble past your defender.
Mhm.
So love Vinny. Vinny's like a keeper of the flame. I love Vinny. There's a lot of them, but that's the first person that came to mind. I really love watching Vinny play. There's another kid that plays at, is it Ren? Is Douay at Ren? I think he plays at Ren. Let me double check. Yes, he plays at Ren.
Mm.
18 years old. I love this kid.
Mm.
Desire Douay. I love him. I think he's super, super special. And for me, sometimes I feel like an old man when I'm looking at kids born in '05 playing, because I'm just like, yo, you were born after I went to high school. That is crazy to me. So yeah, it's I love about Desire Douay. He's someone I really enjoy watching. So
Hey,
yeah,
and you are someone that I definitely take your word for. So I wrote it
yeah.
down. I'm gonna check them out. I'm gonna look
Okay.
into it. It's I'm still learning to be able to steep myself in football, to just like be immersed in it at all times. There
Yeah,
are still moments where I'm like, is this too much? I'm getting close. I'm getting very
yeah.
close, and that helps because I'm doing all of these interviews, and I've legitimately have talked football for like 12 to 14 hours nonstop these last 2-3 weeks. And honestly, next week, Monday and Tuesday are like my last days of doing it, and I have no idea what the rest of the week. Like, I'm just gonna
I mean,
relax. I
luckily,
mean, there's other things
yeah.
to do, but yeah.
Luckily we get a break, and then we get Copa American Euros back to back.
Yes.
So, and we got international games as well. So don't stop, man. It's a
Oh, and
grind.
never.
It does
Oh,
not stop.
we'll
Yeah.
be doing watch alongs for a lot of the matches.
Okay.
So
Amazing. Amazing.
yeah. Um, do you have a match day routine or a football superstition?
I usually don't watch games with people. Like my friends always want to come out and watch games, and like I rarely will pop out to go watch games. I watched the FA Cup final with the homies last week, and also had a homie who's a City fan watch, and it was nice to have a City fan with me to watch his team lose. So that was nice. But most times, man, I'm literally on the couch in the crib, like watching the games alone. I don't know why I can't watch United games in public with people, man. Like I think that I get nerves, and like I can't do it. Um, I did watch a game when I'm at my previous job, when United played against Copenhagen, and that's when we lost away at Copenhagen, right? That game, and this is exactly why I don't watch football with people, because I was so upset that my accent flipped, that my English accent came out. So I was pissed, and I was so upset. It's like, this is why I don't watch it in public, because like I forget where I'm at all times. It's just like I start to act like as if I'm still like in the street. And it's like,
I know,
yo, I
right?
have
That's what I
to
was
like
about to
go.
say.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
London game
yeah.
out, huh?
Yeah, yeah. It's like, yo, I'm still watching with my uncles and my dad type of thing. And like back, like when we would watch, and I would forget this, it was AFCON 2004. We just huddled around this big TV. You know when we had the fatback TVs like back '04,
Yes.
we weren't
Yeah.
we weren't fully switched over to the TVs yet, but we're using like illegal ass cable to watch this AFCON game, and like got a whole bunch of like uncles just drinking Guinness and Heineken, the house smelling like peanuts and like suya and all these different things. And you just hearing uncles just cuss in Yoruba, and like just everyone just like mad at Nigeria. And it's like, this is the way I grew up watching football, right? That's why I got banter so much, because I grew up watching it with a bunch of older Nigerian men who at the time when they're 30s and like 20, in their 30s and 40s, right? And these are older men who like just knew the game, but everything to them was just jokes and it's all about, different things that they saw. So for me, it's like when I approach the game, it's always fun, right? It's like obviously you can do analytics, like you can break down tactics, and I could do all that, but it's always fun. I think for me, football at the end of the day is entertainment. So yeah, it's like sometimes I lose my mind. It's like, oh, I can't say certain things because I'm in public. So yeah. That's why I watch it most of the time alone. So yeah.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
We did our event in Chicago, and we're in the Chicago MCFC bar, and I'm trying to watch the match, but I'm just either I pace, but it's too packed, so I can't pace, and I had no idea I was just heavy drinking
Yeah.
whiskey and ginger beer. Like that's all I was
Okay.
doing was just like power drinking because I was just stressed and I couldn't move. So what else do I do is I just drank and it was rough. And at home I can yell comfortably, and I know that's what you're supposed to do when you're out and about. But I
Yeah.
don't know. I'm still very like, mindful of myself. I'm a big dude. Like I don't know. It's too
You have to be
much.
self. You have to be very self aware of like where you're at. I think that's the number one thing. Is like you got to be aware where you're at. It's just like if I'm around a bunch of other rambunctious United fans, then yeah, let it out. But like sometimes, like hey, just chill out a bit, pump the brakes. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you. Okay, so
Oh man.
elevator pitch your club. So say someone just walks in the elevator and they go, "Oh, I like your kid. That's cool. It's red. Like, what's that
Mhm.
team? Okay, tell me about it." So now you have 30 seconds to preach the gospel of the red team in Manchester. Feel free. Your time starts now.
Do you like stress? Do you like history? Do you like stress? Some more stress. If you love stress and history and you like want to see the greatest team ever to play in England, come watch Man United. If you don't like stress, don't watch us. Period. I think I did a good job there. In under 30 seconds. Yeah.
He's
I think
like,
I think
stress, history. That's it. That's all you need to know. You don't like
yeah.
stress, but you do like history. We probably still aren't worth it.
No. I mean, I always laugh whenever I see people who become United fans post 2013, right? Like people who become United fans, I'm just like, oh man, dude, why'd you do that? Like, why would you do that? But nah, I mean, listen, things will change. I think that in
Yes.
football, it ebbs and flows. Like there was a time when Liverpool the team, there was a time where City got relegated, there was a time where Arsenal were the team, Arsenal getting back to where they used to be. So it's football, man. Like things change all the time. It is what it is. So yeah, it's just if you're gonna become a United fan, man, and like it's not legal in your state to partake in adult, grass, then don't become a United fan. But if you are, listen, I got a perfect team for you. So
Okay.
there's that.
So more on this team real quick.
Okay.
If everything goes according to plan,
Yeah.
how long before they're like a consistent top 4 team?
I think based on like, obviously having friends who work in football and like friends who like know people and things like that, like knowing different things about the club and like just sheer optimism and sheer just blindness to the fact you love your team. I think it'll take United like maybe like a year or two for them to like really properly get on track. I think that the squad isn't as bad as everyone thinks it is. I think that currently Eric Ten Hag, he got it right towards the end of the season somewhat, but there's a lot of structure that needs to be done. I think that Jason Wilcox is somebody who has a standard of excellence. He won the Premier League as a player. He developed City's academy very well, as you know. Um, Omar Barada was also at City, also at Barcelona, so he has a big experience there. Dan Ashworth, like I said, like what he's done at the FA, what he's done at Brighton, what he's done, like just in his career in general, like that's a guy who knows his stuff. So you have a bunch of guys who finally like is a brain trust of like very smart people, right? And this is a club where United prints money. I don't care what anyone says. Like as bad as United are, everyone wants to see how well United does, whether you hate them or not. Everyone's always looking. United's always going to be on the tip of someone's tongue. So I think it'll take like a year or two for United to fully like get everything out. But it helps that like a lot of like contracts are up this summer. It helps that like they want to gut a lot of the squad. So we'll see. But I think that United is going to trend well. I think getting into Europa League was a huge thing that like we didn't realize we needed financially. So,
You're
there's that.
welcome.
Yeah. Thank you. It is what it is. Yeah. I
Pissed.
mean, look, it's funny because
Hate it.
I went into that game not expecting anything. But also another thing, it also helps that United's academy is really, really, really good.
Yeah,
Like they really, really
I'm
revamped it. And
seeing
I
that.
think Kobe Mano is special. Like that's a kid where like he's so fearless at 19 years old. Him and Garnacho do not care. I think that there's a lot more academy kids who are very talented to come through as well, like Shea Lacey and Harry Amas, who's with the England U17. Obviously, Jack Fletcher, who came from City's Academy. So there's a lot of different talents. But again, like it's academy football, right? You never know who's gonna make it out of the academy, right?
That's fair.
No one knew, for example, that Bukayo Saka was going to be that guy, right? No one knew that, like, Oscar Bob. I'm sure you guys had him, high hopes for him, but like Oscar Bob, Rico Lewis, like these guys are players who just kept grinding. And they're here now. So there's always talented players in the academy, right? Some make it, some don't. So yeah, the academy's there to supplement your first team. So I hope in like a year or two, United will finally get back on track because what you have to do, especially with the Glazers being who the Glazers are, the bare minimum for me is just caring, right? Do you actually care? The Glazers did not care, man. They were so neglectful. So, and you even know the story about how the Glazers got control of United?
Yeah, they got a good deal on him, basically, right?
Nah, you didn't know about the horse?
I guess not.
Oh man. All right. So Sir Alex Ferguson in the mid, he loved his horses, right? And this guy named the McManuses, and I forgot who else. Like, they also co-own part of United, right? But they also had the
Oh, that
horse
club
that Sir
before.
Alex Ferguson loved, right?
Yes.
So I'm gonna try and sum it up. So they were arguing over basically horse semen and like the horse winning, right? So Alex Ferguson got in their face, got them really upset, and they're like, you know what? Fuck it. We're gonna sell our shares. And they end up selling their shares to the Glazers, and how the Glazers end up winning United, getting United because of horse semen. And what the Glazers did is they did a leverage buyout. So United had no debt. They took all their debt from the buyout, right? Put it onto the club. That's why United has so much debt and it's compounded over the years. So basically, Sir Alex Ferguson and some guys got in an argument over a horse. They got so pissed and sold their shares to the Glazers, who ended up taking over the club. So, bit brief of history for those who don't know how United got into the mess that they are in today. So, yeah.
Well, and I've always heard people say that you can thank SAF for the Glazers, but I thought that it was like, like a actual, hey, thank him because you guys were good at one point in time, but obviously you're still stuck with them. All right, well, that's a hilarious story, and
Yeah, I mean, if you guys want to get further into it, just look up Sir Alex Ferguson horse Glazers Man United. I'm sure you have fun with that. So
I'm sure you'll have fun with that.
yeah.
Oh, Shady Gang, once again, please give it up for Tosin. Yeah.
Thanks, man. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, man, thank you for coming on and
Mhm.
plug yourself, your socials and all those other things. Let people know where
Yeah.
they can find you and the things you do.
I'm not that important. Just follow the Shirtless Plantain Show. We're on YouTube, we're on Instagram, we're on Twitter, we're on TikTok, Apple, Spotify, everywhere. Just look up Shirtless Plantain Show, shirtlessplantain.show.com. We're coming up with new merch soon. So yeah, I mean, I'm not important. This the brand, the homies, like that. That's the most important thing. Me, I'm just part of the team, man, and I love my team. So that's really all it is. So yeah, follow us everywhere.
Respect.
Mm.
All right, Shady Gang, you know the vibes. I'll be back in another day or two with another most dope guest talking football. But until then, you know the vibes. Shady Gang, Shady Gang, Shady Gang.